In 1979, TaylorMade changed the driver game by introducing the original one, the first ever metalwood in the industry. Now in 2022, are they about to do it again? Say hello to the game's first ever carbonwood. Titanium has been the material predominantly used in drivers for the last 20 years across the industry. But TaylorMade realised if they wanted to make further advancements, that really needed to change. The new Stealth driver is made completely from carbon. In fact, the club face is made from 60 layers of carbon, which is seriously impressive. Now, this has taken 20 years for TaylorMade to develop. In fact, the first prototype for this club was made back in 2003. They've made some serious investments to get this product off the ground, including building massive plants to build new parts. So let's see just how it performs against last year's Sim 2. So there are 3 models in the new Stealth driver range. First up is the Stealth Plus. I would compare this to kind of the Sim or the Sim 2 model, and it's designed to be the lowest spinning in the range. You can see here we've got a 10-gram adjustable weight rack, and really this is going to be for your lowest players. We're probably going to see this model a lot on tour. Then we move on to the Stealth. I think for your typical club golfer, this is probably going to be the most popular, and I'd compare it to kind of the Sim 2 Max or the Sim Max. Now this is 15% more MOI than the Stealth Plus, so it's going to be a little bit more forgiving, and you're going to see about 200 to 300 more RPM of spin according to TaylorMade. So that's pretty interesting. Then the final model is the Stealth HD. Again, this is going to be a very forgiving model with lots of MOI, but it's designed to give you that draw shape. So definitely one out there for you slicers. Now, we're going to hit some with all 3, but first off, I'm going to start with the Stealth, because last year I used the Sim 2 Max, that was what I was fitted for. I've got that custom shaft in here, so let's see what the numbers are in terms of performance. So I've already hit a few shots with my gamer, the Sim 2 Max, and got some data on that so we can compare. Now with this, the big tech story is obviously that carbon. The material is a lot lighter than the titanium that was previously used. Now this means that the face is a lot lighter, so it's being made bigger because they've got weight savings. It also means they can move the weight around and put it in more optimal places for that MOI to help you get a little bit more forgiveness. Now this lighter face is also designed to be more efficient, so we should see a little bit more ball speed. Hopefully anyway. So this is literally gonna be my first shot ever with this club. I've not touched it yet because I really wanted to save it for testing. And I have to say, it looks great behind the golf ball. I think it's quite different. The whole top being black is probably gonna suit more golfers. I think before you kind of either loved or hated the top of the club. Personally, I loved it, but I think this is a little bit more simple, so it's probably gonna suit more people. But I do really like the fact we've still got kind of 2 tones of black on the top, so there is still a visual difference between the front and the crown, which does give you some really help in terms of alignment. Definitely feels a little bit lighter than the Sim 2 Max. Went pretty straight. Felt pretty solid. I probably expected it to feel a bit more different, given the fact there's so much material change and weight shift, but really it still swings really nicely. I don't think you would feel a massive difference in terms of weighting from the previous models. Very consistent so far, but probably quite similar ball speeds and carry distance to what I was seeing with my Sim 2. Not too much difference yet, but I am still getting used to it. Longest one yet. Ball speed nearly at 140, it's trying. Pretty impressed with the consistency though. I mean, I left the club face a little bit open on that, but so far, like, all of them have finished within like 13 yards of my target, which is pretty tight dispersion. Oh, not my best swing. Decent distance though, to say. Oh, that felt good. Still just short of the 140. Really solid ball flight. I love the sound too. I don't know, it just feels really quick off the face. I would say so far for me, probably the biggest takeaway is it feels more forgiving, definitely in terms of my dispersion. On some shots I have seen a little jump in ball speed, but I'm not sure yet if that's coming out in the carry distance, although that shot was my longest yet. Oh, okay. 142.9 ball speed. And my carry just jumped up like 7 yards. That's interesting. That felt so pure as well. One 1.8 ball speed again. There's definitely a little bit of extra speed coming now, I'm getting used to it. Okay, those last 3 shots were pretty impressive, I would say, in terms of data and improvement compared to the Sim 2 Max, but let's just go take a look at the averages. So overall, I'd say that data was pretty interesting. If you look at some of the averages, they don't quite tell the whole story. For example, my ball speed average was almost identical between the two, in the 139s. When I first started out with the Stealth, I was still kind of getting used to the club, and some of my first shots were down in kind of the 134s for ball speed. By the end, this was up at 142, which is 2 miles an hour quicker than I got with any of my shots with the Sim 2 Max. We see pretty much the same trend when we look at the carry distance. Both were averaging very similarly, but my best shots with the Stealth were getting a kind of extra 5 or 6 yards on my best shots with the Sim 2 Max, which is definitely pretty interesting. One thing that stands out quite significantly to me is that my clubhead speed jumped up quite a bit with the Stealth. I actually ended up getting 3 miles an hour extra by the end of the testing with this club, and I think maybe that's something down to the new weighting, maybe how it feels, maybe that carbon just makes me personally feel like I can move it a little bit faster. So that was definitely where we were seeing some of the extra gains in distance. In terms of spin, this did drop down a little bit, so I saw about 100 RPMs less than I was getting with the Sim 2 Max, but to be honest, I'm pretty happy with the spin levels as they are. A big thing for me that I really loved was the consistency. Even though I kind of felt like I was swinging full out at it, my worst shot finished like 20 meters off the center line of the fairway, so in terms of playability on the course, that is really great. And also my whole dispersion was just pretty consistent. I was definitely happy with that. I mean, to be honest, on this initial testing, I would happily put this straight in my bag. Now let's go see how the other 2 models compare to this one. So I've got the Stealth Plus now. This is designed to be lower spinning than the standard Stealth model, about 200 to 300 RPM. So let's see if we see that in the data. Still looks really good behind the ball. Probably a little bit more compact, and visually it looks slightly deeper in the face. But to be honest, both the models look so similar, I don't think you'd pick either just based on looks. Felt nice. Definitely looked like it launched a bit lower. Spin pretty low. Like down in the low 2000s. Good ball speed though, up at 140. All these club heads look so good with this KBS shaft I've got in. I love how the shaft just perfectly matches the colourway of the club head. Not bad, not quite as good a strike as the last one. Interesting, my club head speed is up a little bit again compared to the Sim 2. Oh. that felt so good. I'm hitting all of these in a 9-degree head, but visually to me, this definitely looks like it's coming out a little bit lower. Probably a more penetrating fly if that's something you're looking for. I think that's my longest yet. Interestingly, it almost feels like I'm getting slightly more distance out of this than the Stealth, which is not what I would have expected, but I'm not sure on the course if the ball fly would be quite where I wanted it to be. Longest shot to finish with, always feels good. So if we look at the data, this club pretty much does exactly what it says on the tin. There was 300 RPM less spin with this than there was with the standard Stealth model, but we also saw about 1 mile an hour less ball speed and about 4 yards less carry distance. This is probably what I would expect, as for me it's probably not the most suited model. Overall though, in terms of dispersion, it was still really consistent, and another thing I would say was you could definitely notice the height was a little bit lower. So definitely perfect for someone who's trying to bring that ball flight down. Now let's go hit the Stealth HD and see how that stacks up. Okay, final model, Stealth HD. Now this is designed to be the most forgiving in the range as it has the highest MOI. It's also meant to be draw biased, which is going to help a large population of the market. So let's see just how much we can see that kind of draw bias effect. Now visually for me, I don't always love a draw bias driver because typically I have a slightly left path and I will start the ball slightly left. So looking at kind of a shut face doesn't really give me lots of confidence, but I have to say that actually sits really nicely. You can see there is a little bit of kind of shutness to it, but it's really not that much compared to some models on the market. Again, in terms of overall aesthetics, this is almost identical to the other models. Okay, that felt quick straight away. 141 straight off the board. Big jump up in speed compared to the Stealth Plus, which I would expect. So we've gone from kind of the low 2000s to the low 3000s there. Carry was straight up at 210 though, which is my longest first shot with any club today. I really like the feel of this. I'm not gonna lie, that was a pretty terrible strike. And it's still got really decent numbers. I'd be very happy with that for a bad shot. That was really good. I mean, to me, that felt like it was gonna go off the planet right, and it's finished like 8 right of the target, like pretty much in the middle of the fairway. So if you're someone who's wanting to help move the ball a little bit left, definitely gonna help you out. Okay, so final comparisons. The first thing I definitely noticed with the HD model there was it definitely felt the easiest to hit. You could really see that in the launch angle, especially with my good shots. It was the highest launching of all 3 models in the Stealth lineup. I had 100 RPM more spin than I saw with the Stealth model, which is definitely what I would have expected. And in terms of distance, they weren't too dissimilar. My ball speed was down about 1 mile an hour, so I had about 3 yards less carry distance than I did with the Stealth, but I think some of that comes down to the fact that I don't feel quite comfortable looking at that closed face. But I think someone who hits a big slice and really wants to move this ball starting further left is definitely going to feel more comfortable looking at this and is probably going to get a bit more distance out of it. Overall, I have to say, I've been really impressed with all 3 of these models. First off, I just love the way these look. The black and red colourway is just so good and vivid, and I actually really love this red club face behind the ball. An interesting thing is, if you want, you can actually customise these, so there's going to be numerous colourways you can pick between, so if red's not your vibe, there's going to be other options there too. But for me personally, I would definitely be sticking with this. In terms of performance, I think a big thing for me initially was, one, it looks great behind the ball, but two, the sound is just so good. It feels really fast and powerful off the club face. And you might think that's a bit trivial, but I do think it gives you the confidence to really swing at it. And we kind of saw that in the data because my club head speed was just constantly increasing as I continued to hit this. Overall for me, my favourite model was definitely the Stealth, and I think that's what the mass market is going to fit into predominantly. And in terms of speed, I did see some increases. With my best 5 shots, I was seeing about 5 to 6 yards on average, which is a pretty big jump. But to be honest, for me, my favourite thing was the dispersion and the forgiveness. With all 3 of these models, I felt like I could control it really well, especially with the Stealth one, and I would be really pleased with that dispersion out on the golf course, and I think for all golfers, that level of dispersion is really going to help them. Right, that's all for today. If you have any questions about any of these 3 models or any of the new products in the TaylorMade lineup, feel free to drop them in the comments below. We'll be back with more Stealth reviews soon, so keep your eyes on our channel, and if you're after more golf content, head over to the National Club Golfer social media channels for more.